since this is sort of our night, not to be, and I still have questions, and anyone who'd like to send them in, and etc. How would you like to consider, still in the same ball game, how about 2 or 3 things that people never talk about? If this was ordinary, though, and this was some sort of TV show or something, you say, all right, now we're going to talk about things that nobody ever talks about. And then all you'd expect is they're going to talk about, you know, incest, or, you know, dressing up like a woman and going out and picking up sailors. You know, something yucky. And you go, oh, that's right, nobody talks about it. No, that's child's play. In fact, that's what children do. You know what children do? When you was a kid and you tried to impress some other girl, if you were a boy, and say, ooh, you know, see something mystical, and then you'd blow your nose, or, you know, spit up blood. Now, I'm talking about, I was referring to how would you like to talk about stuff that people never even think about? And then the crowd said, the ordinary crowd said, nah, we'd prefer to just you talk about yucky, obscene stuff. 2 minutes and we're gone already? So that's what ordinary people would prefer. Now I'd prefer you talk about death and guts and gory, real horrible stuff. I mean, if it's between that and just talk about things that people never think about, because I don't even want to think about what you might talk about. But you can say that the mind is absolutely amazed to find itself conscious. It is absolutely amazed to find itself in existence. Now you can't say that about any other part of man's being. You can't say the body can have fun and etc. But it's the mind that finds itself absolutely just astounded, just amazed that it's here, that it's whatever the hell it is, that it's operating, that it's your mind. Beyond that, your mind can make no sense out of what it's doing here. Now, there are 2 things. It can't make any sense out of itself, and it can't make any sense out of what it's doing here. And before we move into something a bit more perhaps practical, I was going to point out this is the basis of where the idea of talking to God came from. And other offshoots of it. That's the most historic. But how about the idea of people saying such things, even those that are only religious twice a year? That kind of thing. The people, you can certainly hear them, and they'll say it. They'll admit, yes, I did it. That, oh God, you know, or Allah, whoever they're praying to, you know, just let my little daughter survive this operation. I'll do better. I'll quit drinking. You know, whatever. Or somebody had a huge wreck. You know, God, don't, you know, let me get out of this with my license. Let me get out of this without the other person dying. I swear to God, I'll never drink. Everybody's heard those stories. It's not just funny. Because you can walk around the house and not be religious, and you will talk to yourself. And in fact, I would guess, it's not important, but the people that swear that they're a full-time atheist periodically do that. Just do it on the basis, and I'm not trying to attack it one way or the other, as you know, but just on the basis that people walk around the house maybe, and you know, think about that their aunt they heard's dying, or their cat's sick, and they don't know what else to do, and you know, the people just say things like, you know, God, you know, help somebody that can't help themselves. You know, a poor little animal, or help my aunt, they say she's got terminal cancer and they can't operate, and they just say it. I'm going to tell you what the basis of it is. Nobody wants to, well, you people do. You showed up. You all got your money for showing up, right? I mean, I hate for us to get behind, because I try to get you paid every month, you know, every week. Well, most of you on weekly to be here, so that you can't complain. The idea of talking to God, now stretch it out as far as you can, all the way into ideas of self-improvement, self-hypnosis, or just talking to yourself in the broadest, and there's no criticism intended in any of this, so that you don't choke on that. That people talk to themselves like, well, fate, or even astrology. The whole thing, just follow me. They're still talking to God, what the middle class has always called God. How did this come about? I'm going to tell you. Why did it come about? The mind is amazed, astounded to find itself in existence, and it can make no sense out of what it's doing here and what it's up to. And the main basis of me saying that it can't make any sense of itself is this. It can imagine things, it can think about things that it can't do. That's the astonishment. That is the singular astounding aspect of the human mind. Because if the body could think, which it does, it just doesn't think in words, it does not think of anything that it cannot do. It does not. The body does not look at a rock and think, I wish there was some way that I could grind this up and mix it up with sawdust or tofu and sell it and make money. I wish I could eat it, in other words. You know that's not true. The body does not think of anything that it cannot do. The body would not look. If you had these two poles driven in the ground, and one vertically and one horizontally, the body would never look at that if it just walked out in the field and saw one, and your body think, I believe I'll get way back and run as fast as I can and jump up and maybe, just see what happens. I'll jump as high as I can there. Maybe I'll get a stick and try to jump up. Maybe I'll fall and hurt myself. Come down. If you're a man on the pole, the top part, pole vault. It takes the mind. The body does not think of anything that it cannot do. But the mind is astounded very shortly. And it operates even verbally. People do not think about it this way. It operates on the basis of children beginning to be lectured and cautioned by their parents about, don't imagine so much. Hey, you're 6 years old. Quit talking about you're going to fly out the window of Peter Pan if I don't fix you a sandwich tonight or give you ice cream. Come on, you got to stop that. There's reality and then there's imagination. Now, you could, if you're an ordinary psychologist or some other crude person, you could say, well, a child's finally got to shape up and face, the facts of life. That's not it. That's why they're a psychologist. That's why they're paid and given diplomas to tell you other stuff. I'm telling you the truth. It is the mind being shocked, being astounded, being perplexed over the fact that it thinks of just an endless stream of things. Not just pole vaulting, not just being able to eat things that should have been inedible. It constantly, that's its job. That is almost its forte, if not raison de forte, whatever the hell that is. Never mind. Check with Random House in their new edition of their dictionary. Send them a suggestion besides get out of town. It is the mind, it's just its whole business. It's thinking about things, and of course on a fairly ordinary level, that's part of the dreams of the mind, is part of what seems to be a part of the driving force of technology and civilization itself. That is to dream of things. Boy, don't you wish we could fly to the moon, and then after 10 or 12 decades or hundreds of years of working, they actually do it. And it starts here. All right. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about that the mind continually thinks of things that it cannot do, such as make change. And it's amazed. Nobody ever analyzed it like this. You're the first ones to ever hear it out loud. It is amazed, which is just a word, perplexed, astounded, confused, that it can think of things. And you can think of things. Taken to a little more ridiculous degree, it's the whole idea that a man can delude himself to such a degree that, smoke a little pot or have a drink, or just if you're that neurotic to begin with, go in the bathroom, turn down the lights and do your hair and say, I do look like Robert Redford, when he actually looks like Dom DeLuise. But the thing is, the mind can almost do it. And with some people it can do it. And of course when they do that, everybody else goes, no, you went too far, and they'll lock them up. When the guy begins to go into restaurants and saying, do you have a table here for Mr. Redford? And everybody goes, you should have picked out somebody better. You can't even pass. And the man begins to insist, or they finally have him arrested, or somebody talks to him and he insists. And they say, you really believe it? And they hold up a mirror and he says, oh yeah, I look just like him. What they do, they put him away. They'll say, well, the man's dangerous. Why? Because you got to finally let the mind say, wait a minute, we can think of things and we can't do them, and you're supposed to kind of get, rattle about it and going about your business. But you're not supposed to holler, I'm Peter Pan and can fly. You're 20 years old, sir, 30 years old, you can't fly. Yes, but I still look like Robert Redford. Now, we better lock him up. He could be dangerous. Nobody wants to go further. Like, why is it dangerous, to believe something that the mind says is possible, and just because everybody says it's not possible? No. Well, we know it's dangerous, but we won't. That wasn't the topic for the night. The mind can imagine. It's just part of. When I say imagine, remember one more time. Just think for yourself. It's not just that it can. That it's just little side jobs it does. That is what the mind is up to, as witnessed by me bringing out the thing about kids having this wild imagination, as it's called. I didn't just bring that up as a ricochet toward the main target. It's just the mind. Just think back. If you could remember anything about when you remember beginning to be mentally conscious, or see kids around, what they start doing, the first things they talk about when they start talking is imaginary things. Oh, while you were gone, Mommy, I flew out the window. I talked to, me and the dog talked. Oh, how cute, the dog. The mind just immediately does things. That's its job, to think about things that are not possible. The things that are not possible. I could leave it at 1, or I could do 2 or 3 or 10. But how about this? It thinks about the idea of free will, and it cannot implement it, which is a variation of it thinks about change, and it cannot affect change. Simply cannot. What does it do? Well, plus it understands that it can't. Wait a minute. Plus it has a kind of crude understanding, or an impression, a conviction that it can't. Because in a closed system, the body knows it can't change. The body cannot grow another finger. The mind cannot grow another mind. The mind, once it's set in motion, cannot grow a little offshoot of the mind to think about things that contradict what it thinks now. And the mind knows that. And it knows that it can't be otherwise, because within a closed system, how are you going to change anything? So the mind knows that. Then it's left with this again, back where we started. Why the hell can it think that of the possibility if it can't be done? Why can the mind even think about, I could change what I am mentally? I could change what I am personally. And a child, a person finds out, if they have any semblance of objectivity, they find out, that's a crop of shit. And you check with everybody. Yes, we can. You see books. How to do it. Guaranteed. Money back. And you're surrounded. And your parents, the police, priests, everyone says, well, you sure you can. Not only can you, but must you. Because you're not perfect, are you? Well, I never claimed I was. Well, change. And each individual goes through some period, some flash, that I can no more change what I am here, or personally, than I can grow another finger on my hand. And it thinks, well, can the rest of you? And everybody goes, what a stupid question. Even if they're not that insulting. They all nod like, well, you naive little person. Certainly you can. They just look at you. You follow me. It's not a plot. It's not your parents' fault. It's not civilization's fault, etc. But you are surrounded by those that at least tacitly say, well, you can change. And what they're saying is, in line with what your mind's already gone through, that, well, I think I can. I can imagine I can. Okay. Then why can't I? Don't lose the place. It's real simple. The body, even though it doesn't think in the words, the body does not think of things that it cannot do. The body never thinks, well, I'll jump off a building and I can fly like a bird. No, you got to put drugs in the brain. And the brain says, hey, we could fly. And by then it's got the body so screwed up You can drag it up. Of course, if you're lucky, maybe your body right at the last minute comes. How about shape up? But the body does not even think about anything. It would never cross its mind. Period. The mind constantly has its mind crossed of things that it apparently cannot do, such as, well, I'll change. I'll quit eating so much. I'll quit smoking. I'll quit drinking. Just anything. It's hurting my career having such a bad temper. Well, I don't know why I never thought about it. I'll stop. I'll stop tomorrow. Boy, now I'm on the way. In fact, the man can sit there after some dangerously close escapade with getting an argument with his boss on a Tuesday night. He can say, Wednesday morning, no more Mr. Anger. They'll never see my temper again. And he can sit right there and think, well, that's the only reasonable thing to do. I don't know why I never thought about it before. People all my life's been telling me, you've got a bad temper. Someday you'll pay for it. And they're right. So, Jesus, I don't know why. Tomorrow I'll stop. It's not true, and you know it. The mind finds that. Pick out your choice again. All of the above. Confusing, astounding, amazing, incomparable, inconceivable, and a whole bunch of other things that start with N. Inexplicable? Okay. There it is. Constantly thinking about things that it cannot do. And thinking about them not just now that you're grown, not just flying through the air after Peter Pan or Dumbo. Actually think about things that seem to be very practical and that those around you nod when you say, well, my temper is too bad, isn't it? I mean, my temper, and your wife, your husband. They go, yeah, it's about time you realize it. And he says, I almost got fired today. God Almighty. Well, I guess I could hold it down. I mean, it's not like, I know most of it's my imagination. I just believe that people, the boss and other people, I've always been resentful of authority. I used to do that with my mother and father, and they'd go, you got to watch that temper. I'll tell you things for your own good. And I look back now and they were right. They told me, don't cross the street when we're not around. And I'd think, Daddy, don't tell me I'm 7 years old. And they're right. I shouldn't have done it, but here I am now, 37, and the boss says, don't put those papers over here on this file when I told you not to. And I thought, what the hell does it matter? I've been here 10 years. I know what I'm doing. I'll move them later. And he looked at me like, whew. And so you tell your wife, your husband, you go see a psychiatrist, a counselor, and you say, there's no need for that, is? I mean, it's just the normal run of business, and people, I just react too strongly. I react in a way that's not in my own, and they add best self-interest. He goes, that's right. And so he says, well, I should change. And everybody around him, all other sane people, look like, well, it's about time you realized it. And it is such a given in ordinary society that people do not really turn around to their other sane people, like your husband and wife, and say, well, can I control my temper? You don't even ask it. Because you know you can't. But you don't even ask it. Forget that part. Except those of you with 3 years right quick. You don't even ask. Because it is a given. When you say, well, I guess the time's come. I'm going to have to put some kind of clamp on my temper. And your husband, wife, children, your friends, go. But the nod is not just, yes, we agree. The nod is also saying, yes, and it's possible. Or why else would they nod? Your good friend, your mother, your best friend, your mate, your husband and wife, they wouldn't lie to you. So if you said to them, well, I guess I should cut down, hold my temper down. I mean, just for my own problem, my health, much less my job. And they go, and they hug you. They wouldn't lie to you. They're not just saying, yes, you should. They're also saying, yes, you should, and you can. Because by nodding, if they didn't think you could, if they weren't saying you could, they'd be lying to you. So being your best friends, they're not going to lie. If it wasn't possible, they go, well, you should, but hell, you can't. Nobody's going to tell you that. Not your friend. Some maniac might tell you that. Or some guy wanting your job, wants you to get fired. So there you are. There you are with the mind thinking about things that it cannot do. And it's right at the heart of life. Change. What does the mind do? It thinks about things that doesn't make any sense. The fact that it can think about things that it cannot do that seem to be at the very core of a good or a better existence. How to change. that if we do have some kind of free will, if I decide something is not my best interest, my temper, some bad habit I have, what's to discuss? I mean, I can imagine. I look around me and I see millions of people all around me who do not drink. And now alcohol is beginning to ruin my life, or smoking, or overeating. And I look around and they're just millions of people, well, hundreds of people I know, my good friends. Well, I'm talking about your immediate. The point is, there are people who do not do that. So me imagining that I could quit doing it is not something like imagining I can fly. It's not insanity. All I'm imagining is what other people can do. So, when I say imagine, remember that the mind can imagine. I'm starting off easy. It then becomes think. Because the older you get, you consider that what you think is not imagination. Well, I'm not playing with words, but I just wanted you to understand that it's still the mind thinking things that it cannot do. Except now we're not talking about imaginary things like you think that you can talk to the dog when you're 6 years old. You now think, you and everyone else having no choice, you think, I can stop. When you know you cannot stop, you know it would be a damn miracle if you could just get up tomorrow and quit drinking, quit smoking, change your temper, change your personality. And yet the mind, when I say that it can picture it, it is not like you think, well, wait a minute, my temper is killing me. It's going to ruin my life. But wait a minute, everybody in the world has a temper as bad as mine, and nobody else can control it. The mind knows that's not true. You turn around to your wife, if it's a man, in my example, and your wife is tolerant. She'll let people run all over the way you look at it. People in your office, just everybody. Your minister, your rabbi, you remember your dear sainted grandmother. People would take advantage of her and she would just smile on you. And she knew what was going on, but she wouldn't let her temper ruin her life. So you know that it's possible, and everybody goes, yes. And you know that you can't do it. But remember, it's simple, but it just got to look in 3 or 4 different ways. You know it's not possible for you, and then you think, but if I can imagine it, if I can think about it, that other people do it, and I can think about me, I can think of me getting up tomorrow. I can think about me, I just have pictures now the rest of my life, getting promoted now at the office, becoming manager, maybe someday move up to vice president, and I can imagine me. And perhaps this is where heroes come in many times in the widest sense of the world with people's mind. You even picture your current boss or somebody you know in the office that has very steady nerves, doesn't get rattled. I mean, then the whole office is getting some kind of argument about the way things could go, and he's always like the voice of calm and reason. He'll stand there and he'll listen to several. In other words, you can picture it, and you know that you can't do it. But then you're left with this. You never analyze it, but the mind's left with this. Well, I can think about it. I was born thinking about things that I can't do, and so's everyone else. That becomes obvious. So how did it get in the system? How can I imagine things? Why do I imagine things that I can do, that humans can do, that I can't do? And then you think, well, how can it be otherwise? Because if we're born inside of a closed system, even though that wouldn't have been your term, if we're born inside a closed system, that's the way things are, then how am I going to change? I'm going to have to call upon something outside the system. I've got to come in here and, hey, I'm thinking about being able to change and I can't do it. Come on in here and help me. God. People begin to talk to God. Even people who would claim they're not religious and might not even want to say the word God, but it's the same thing about, damn, God. And they may say it just almost as just a cliche, that the guy does come home. When the boss told him that day, Perkins, I want to see you in the office. I want you in here early. I'm going to come in early just to talk to you in the morning. And he walks off. And you go home, you stop and have a few drinks. And you get home and you tell your wife, I'm afraid I blew it. I mean, here it is. You're going to lose your pension. Your whole life's going to fall apart. And you might even be religious. And here it is. Your temper's done it again. This may be the final blow. And you would say things very likely to yourself like, my God, what have I done? My God, just let me get past this one time. Whether you meant God literally or not, what are you doing? What are people doing when they talk to themselves? But the idea of God makes it sound more rational. As irrational as religion may sound to some people. It makes it sound more rational because what you're asking is for some kind of force to come outside from without the system and make you change, or to make it possible for you to affect the kind of change that your mind can dream of, as strange as that is, and you can't do, thus God. Oh, just because you're in the position of being helpless, all the way from can't control your temper to there it is, your daughter's undergoing a surgery in the morning with a very slim chance of surviving it, and there you are suddenly saying, God, I'll go back to religion. I'll become religious if you'll just let her live. That's all I want, just let her live. Because the point is, you're helpless. And I don't mean in some negative sense about poor old us, we're all sick and going to die. Straighten up. But there you are helpless, and that's a way that really affects you. It's either that or lose your job, or you're spitting up blood and you can't quit smoking, anything. But that one just seems to grab more people by the little, what you call them? No, not those, the heart. It's just let my child live. I swear to God, I'll start going to temple, to church, to the mosque. I'll become religious. I don't even care if I don't believe in it. I'll give my money and I will do it. Just let her live. Let her survive this. You're simply stating the fact that, hey, of course, if you were a physical being, if you had no mind, and you were a dog, and one of your puppies had to go into surgery tomorrow, what the hell do you know? You're not going to pray to God. You're not even going to worry about it. The puppy never shows back up. You never see a dog, sit around, a female dog, and go, whatever happened? I had 5 pups yesterday, and I got 4. They may sniff around once or twice like, well, something's wrong, and then they just look off. That's just it. That's the way you would be physically. It's the mind. It's the mind that knows she may die. It's the mind that knows everything about sickness and etc. It's the mind that knows she's going in surgery tomorrow and I can't do a damn thing about it. She may die, or my child may die, and I can't do anything about it. And of course, you may have some understanding that, the surgeon can just barely do anything about it. I mean, if anything, if she survives it, it's about like I pulled up to a full service station. Don't know where you found one that said fill it up with gas, and they actually filled it up with gas. And didn't kill you, didn't blow up your car, didn't put in water, didn't put in gasoline. You gave them a $20 for a $15 charge, and they gave you back a $5, and you drove off. There's about the same likelihood of that of a surgeon doing it. It's just life. So you're asking, what you're doing is stating the obvious, is I have no control over life. Which we could say no one does, just for a figure of speech, just for sake of argument for a moment. No one has any direct effect, any control over life. Except humans can imagine they do. That's what drives them confused, perplexed, makes them astounded that they can think, they can picture, they can just picture having control over life, which, one more time, is one reason we have heroes, is because, and people like gossip, is because the idea of heroes is there's somebody in the world that does have control. Of course, it gets kind of sketchy how it goes from that your hero, maybe some people was Julius Caesar, all the way from that to now one of your heroes is Mia Farrow, and or some rock and roll singer, and you think, well, God, I love to read about him because, and you don't analyze it, but it's the same thing as you think, because at least they have some control over their life. It won't, doesn't stand much analyzation about, why did I pick out a movie star? It's still the point that the mind, it's the same thing as God, by the way. It's just you probably don't spend as much money unless you buy, a hellacious amount of fan magazines. It's just cheaper than going to church. But heroes of any kind, gossip is the same thing as God. Sports heroes, that's God. We're talking about this exact same thing, is that you are appealing to an outside, a hope for, an outside force. That is, somebody be able to execute the kinds of dreams that my mind has, me and everyone else that's saying. It's obvious that we dream, we can think about having power over life, and I don't have any. Somebody's got to have some. The MVP player of this year's World Series, he's got to. He can't be at home like me. Or the Pope. Or Robert Redford, he can't be like me. God. Which just makes it better because nobody's seen God. You don't know what his batting average is. You don't know whether he's as handsome as Robert Redford or as comely as Mia Farrow, assuming he's one or the other. In other words, you can't say, well, he struck out. He didn't measure up. That is talking to God. That is where religion came from. And consider what it says, though, about the mind. Last time I read an item, I wrote an item, then read an item, so that we don't shift the blame, that said that one of the tricks, one of the approaches, would be not to think about hormonal things, but to think only about thinking things. And I just started on that last time. It would be not to think about anything having to do simply with survival, which if any of you took the time since then to try and think about it, that knocks out about, I'm just guessing offhand, probably 98% of everything you think about. That it's sex, food, clothing, fashion, human relationships, it is something having to do with survival. You do not think about thinking things. Well, some of you by now I'm sure do. And just when you do it maybe once a month, it is so astounding that if you didn't watch it, you could say, oh no, you're wrong. I've worked my way up to the point now. I bet I spend, I don't know, probably half my time thinking about thinking things. Once a month you do. Once a week. But it's so astounding. I could go on with that a long time, and maybe I'll go back to it because it is very practical. It is just every day. It is electrochemical. But I thought since it was our off night, how about I expand it and say, don't think about anything that everybody else thinks about. I don't care what it is. You're talking about something now. See, the problem is many people, of you here, and people that's been following this, and people that's just fool around their own here and there, have had already an experience where that you were, let's just, to make it quick, that you got the brain activated somewhere beyond the ordinary level. That you were in somewhere conscious, and it was beyond the mere support of the mind. It's a non-verbal awareness, and you're still quite conscious, and etc. The trick then, the question then, gets real simple in life. How the hell to get it back? Well, how the hell to get it back, and next time, keep it! That's it. Once you get down to that point, you got a hobby. Plus you got the world's great question. We're talking about capital GQ. The great question. Yeah, I know what all this is. Yeah. Well, I thought I did, but now the more you talk, yep, I know. So, skip all the other crap about talking about life. Tell me this. How can I get it back? I had it once, and, since then it's driven me crazy. I tried to forget it, and now I run across you. Now I started hearing about this, and I thought, uh-oh, they're talking about that same crap again. Oh, no, now here I am hooked again. Come on. That's the question. Because there is no drug, there is no light, there is no direction outside of you. Of course, there is none outside of a closed system anyway. Oh, God, don't let that be true. Did that to make you feel better? No. Historically, just to bring you up to one more time up to date, it does seem to happen historically, publicly historically, is that people have worked for it in some specific way, like attempting to sit in a stilled position and in some way fight the ordinary input of the senses, to still the mind. They even tried starving the body. That was one of the ones that the figure Buddha was supposed to have railed against. Like, well, hey, starving your body is going to do one thing. It's going to starve your body. It'll calm the mind. If you call starving to death and blacking out. But the whole thing is people seem to have gone through or continue to attempt to go through these same ritualistic behaviors of fasting, chanting, praying, trying to focus the attention on one spot somewhere, to stare at a drawing or to stare down at their own belly button, to try and calm the waters, try to picture their mind calm. And it's all just, I hope. Try. And sometimes it happens. And the people, of course, then are hooked forever, most of them. And in a sense, they normally also go, within reasonable tolerances, cuckoo. Because they don't understand what happened, and they have to, very shortly after that, attribute it to the gods. That, well, the gods or the fates or the cosmos, upon some of us smile, and then again, maybe later the cosmos seem to turn their head and forget about us. But once they smiled on me, so I've got that. Since I can't get it back, let's see, what'll I do? I'll write a book. I'll tell other people how to do it. Since I can't do it. But at least they know that there's a reality to it at one time. A specific way, because what it is doing, that I went ahead and have been spilling the beans with my drawing, it is activating the nervous system. Now, it certainly once you understand that and feel it, or take that kind of description and get even, if you find one that's more refined and more personal of your own, is all right. But then you understand why they've always called it stilling the mind, getting in touch with the cosmos, getting in union with the rest of humanity, where there is no separation between you and objective reality. And you can go on and on and on, but they're all, you can understand. Yep, I can understand why somebody would have put it that way. That it is a fair explanation. I mean, it's as good as any. It's just I have now, since we're here, and Jesus, it's almost be 1794, first of the year, we've come this far. And I thought I'd bring it a little more up to date. That you are actually activating, they've always been doing it, the brain itself. How can you do that? Drugs, of course, can give what amounts to almost a temporary touching of it. That's why certain drugs have always been popular. But assuming that everyone understands that you cannot do that more than once. And even the one time you do it's not even as good as doing it accidentally and believing that God did it. You're in worse shape, if possible, than being religious. You're a druggie. No offense to anybody. I guess it's kind of a toss-up, but which is worse. I know one of them's more expensive. But rather than all of that, you can directly, once you have a certain picture of it, once you can see that the time is right to adopt, because it is based on the reality, to adopt a more specific physical picture, that you are literally trying to boost the juice, the chemical, you're trying to expand the electrical spark further into the mind. Ordinary people, right quick, if I put that on them, or if somebody had done that 500 years ago, then ordinary people, or even semi-unordinary people attempting to be mystics, attempting to do something extraordinary, they go, aha, okay, I can hear that, we can go with that, I can buy that, what do we do? But they would not have taken anything more specific after that, because they would have still expected the same old menu of, well, what you've got to do is appease the gods, or you've got to change your behavior, which is always an easy one, because you tell people that, and they got a hobby the rest of their life. Because you can't do it. So it's not like you're going to come back finally to whoever taught you this or gave you the directions and say, well, all right, now I've collected one of every stamp in the world, my book's full, how come I'm now not more conscious? See, they can't do that. They can say, well, here's what you got to do. And of course, all religions are replete with them, all would-be mystical systems. They say you have got to purify yourself. You've got to be a man without any personal blemishes. You've got, well, at least you've got to strive for perfection. I can see that. Perhaps you'll not reach it, but you must strive for perfection. And it's not really in question what perfection is. You might say, well, could you give me a hint? And the guy could say, well, I see you're smoking there. You obviously need to stop that. And you go, oh, yeah. And I noticed you had kind of a temper when you came in here. You wanted to know why I was late seeing you today. I noticed you were talking to my secretary out there in the outer cave. You go, yeah, you're right about that. And plus, I noticed you got bad habits. You're biting your fingernails. God, you're right. And so there you go. You got a lifetime of stuff to go rectify. But what are they? It's behavior. It's stuff a warthog could do or get us involved with if a warthog could think. Tell a warthog, what you should do is not let those facial hairs get that long, because it's uncomely. I mean, it's irritating to other civilized animals. And the hog goes, oh, you're right. And yet it can't seem to stop it. Just hairs, come out of its nose, there's spears. All organized religion, anybody who doesn't know what they're doing, that attempts to change and even do so on the basis of verbally describing it as being an extraordinary attempt, all the way from organized religion, which is just the kind of extraordinary attempt for ordinary people, to those that actually think that they're involved with some mystical, transcendental effort. What do they all end up doing, without exception? They all end up relying upon dictates, directives affecting behavior. I mean, it's right in your face. It's just point blank. Except nobody ever thinks about it. You want to be a good, fill it in. I want to be a good follower of Yogi so-and-so. I want to be a good Christian. I want to be a true mystical Muslim. Whatever it is. They go, and they start naming. And it all has to do with this. You in some way have got to, if not perfect, you've got to work at perfecting your behavior. And not one sane person on this planet ever goes, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I almost went for that again. What in the goddamn hell does that mean? It means nothing. That's why you laugh at me saying if a warthog could think and wanted to be mystical. And you say, well, I can see. I've always watched you being this swine guru. And you say, I've had my own you, and you have great promise. But now here's the first thing. We've got to do something about that kind of unruly facial hair growth that you have. And the warthog would go, well, you got me. Why? Because it's natural. And because there is nothing to do about it. That's why the warthog would go, well, you got me. So life tells you through its intermediaries, its businesses, its organizations, its institutions. It says, well, all right, you want to live a decent life. Would you like to get somewhere? In fact, I've had my own you. I know that you've read some books on UFOs and clairvoyance. And you go, yeah, I have. They go, all right, I wouldn't normally tell people this, but you might be able to do something with your consciousness. But first off, you got to, if I may say so, you got to clean up your act. And you don't have to ask quiet. You would immediately ditch your cigarette, try to hide your fingernails. Wonder if he can still smell that beer on your breath. It doesn't even have to tell you, but it will. It will. Go get any book that says how to be more conscious, how to wake yourself up consciously, how to be a transcendental human being. And just look at the table of index. And it's going to look like, a 12-step program, of how to be a better husband. How to live longer. Don't smoke. Don't eat fats. Cut down cholesterol. Watch that temper. I'm sorry. Watch that temper. Well, you do know that. Even those that apparently are involved very directly into what appears to be attempts to specifically increase one's awareness or consciousness, their spirit, all that. What are they doing? If you did go and save all your money and threw away all your possessions and went and found some school that you had some faith in, that you had heard about, that's all they do is it's a group of people, and they're devoted their whole life to try and expand their consciousness. And they just call it that. What do they do? And you say, well, all right, I'm here. I've come over here. I've crawled up this mountain, or however you got there, and I've thrown away everything. I've cut all my past. I'm here. You can't turn me away. I'll stay here if I just have to lay outside this gate here. And they go, oh, all right, come on in if you're that serious. What's the first thing they're going to give you? Not only the first thing, what's the second, the third, the fourth, and then put in your own ellipses. What are they going to be? All right, now here's the rules. Rules? And they go, well, no, they're just rules we have to go by so to make the atmosphere more conducive to actually fulfilling our goal. Oh, okay. That is the goal. There is nothing after that. Well, you know that. Yeah, but I didn't want to hear about it. Well, tough shit. Here's the rules. That's always it. There's nothing else to do. All right, we sit. We sit in the full locust position, a minimum of 18 hours a day, and if you move more than once a week, you're out of here. Oh, and you must work in the kitchen. You must do this. And you cannot smoke. You cannot drink. You cannot talk, except between the hours of 4:15 and 4:20 on Saturday. But of course, I can make it all sound funny, and you know damn well that the world is full of people You probably, all of you probably got a relative somewhere that tried to do something like that. If they didn't do it in some cult, they did it within a religious context of an organized religion. They tried to be a monk or a nun or something. And it's the same thing. All right. Specifically, that's what I was trying to give you, is right into the brain itself. If I could get those people's attention for a second, and they could be that lucid for a moment, and I said, all right, rather than all this, which is not going to do anything, that's why you do it. It's because it's not going to do anything, and the people telling you how to do it, they don't know how to do it. And so that's why they tell you, all right, now here's the rules, you got to do this, and maybe, it'll set up the atmosphere. It'll make the conditions conducive externally and internally so that this great experience may occur. We can't promise, but you must do these things. We can tell you this, if you don't, to some degree, cleanse your character and improve your personality, well, that is stop very bad habits, such as the obvious one of drinking and smoking and eating fats. But you've got to stop doing things like being sexually promiscuous. Is always a good one. You notice they all have to do with survival. They all have to do a warthog level. They don't ever tell a man, listen, don't ever think about the obvious clash between existentialism and socialism. They don't ever tell you anything that you got to do mentally. They tell you things that you're supposed to do mentally, but they have to do with what? Hormonal things. Don't you ever think about sex as long as you're in here, because you cannot become more conscious if you let your mind dwell on sex. Do you understand me? And you go, well, yeah, because, yeah. Boy, what are you going to do as soon as you walk out of the room? You start thinking of all the things you like to dream about sex and think, well, I can't ever think about them again. Well, there I go. There you go. You could, back to where you were, I could get a few people that I could say, all right, can you hear that all of that is just a hobby, that it's not going to actually do anything, or if it does, if you did experience the brain itself becoming conscious in a new area, do you understand it would have been almost irrelevant to whatever you were doing, like being sitting there in the yellow jacket position for 18 years, of fasting, of doing without booze, doing without sex. Do you realize that it was, could you just accept the possibility that you having that experience was just irrelevant? That was just unconnected, other than the fact that, you did it, and some people go, yeah, but then you're left with this. They'd say, well, what else could I do? I didn't know where else to go, which is the way life works. But that's what I'm trying to get at to you. There is a more specific way. It's not for, it's not for everybody, because everybody is not interested in doing this anyway, even if it was easy, which is not easy. It's work directly on this. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to sit in any particular way. It's right here. It's going on constantly. And you don't have to picture. I mean, you can. That's why I draw my little chart and draw the thing, but you don't have to picture, well, it's disturbances of the senses making my mind uneasy, and it's all the greed. It's the envy that's tormenting our souls and won't let, I won't say God, say I'll be more up to date. That the transcendental experience itself, the union with the cosmos, cannot come down and let me experience it in a more full personal union as long as I am involved with this kind of unseemly imagination. What unseemly imagination? Well, this particular ones I have, you just don't know what they are. Oh boy, I bet that'd be a shock. So you see, but you hear, I've almost come to the point, but now watch, they're going to trip. And I say, no. Don't think anything that everybody else thinks. Wait a minute, do you mean, shut up. God damn. You tell somebody, and within 5 seconds, I'm exaggerating, it was 2 seconds the way I did it, don't think anything that anybody else thinks. Now you're talking. They would still do it on the basis, well, now you mean don't think about this. I'll do both parts. And I go, and they go, wait, no, I see why you kind of sneered. You mean don't think about that. Now back to me doing me. Well, let's say the example I was just doing was politics, let's say. or sex. And then they go, oh, because see, they went, oh, don't think about this over here. And I went, and they went, oh. And they said, well, this, oh, I see this over here in the same area. See, let's say politics. And I still go. Then they go, oh, you're talking about, and then they move over to money. Oh, not money here, money there. And by then, of course, even if I'd had their attention for a second, it'd be gone now. It's gone like $39 airfares. They're done for, because then they've lost all interest. They just have to. The mind has 1,000 eyes, but it don't have one long enough to keep, listen to this kind of crap. It goes, no. The whole... You see, there have been attempts, or so-called methods that came close to this. And of course, originally they could have been much closer to this. I'm just telling you the way that they have survived out in public enough that you might have heard about them, or you could read about the history of it. It is tied to not just the kinds of rituals of sitting or changing a diet. It's like the idea of trying to remember the name of God with every breath. Or anything, just a word, Nosha. They could say, well, I just made up the word, I assume. That you can find some group and they would say, all right, the point is, and they could even describe some of the things I have, that what you're trying to do is expand the consciousness, trying to, blah, blah, blah. And instead of sitting around trying to calm it and take drugs, we're trying to focus it. Because if you can bring it under some kind of control, it's faster that way, and then it at least opens up the possibility more quickly that you could get the brain that might just, decide finally that there's all that electrochemical energy left, and it might go and jump over there in a new area. Okay? And you go, okay. All right, here's what you do. Constantly, no matter what else is going on, no matter, the imagination, you got a stomach, I don't care what, says the guy. The word Nosha. Try to picture it just spelled up here, maybe right in the middle, a big eye looking at you. I'm not just trying to be silly, and they'd say, just try and picture that. Just hold that in your mind, no matter what else the hell's going on. That's real close, folks. Real close. I'm just putting it to you in a little more direct way, is whatever everybody else is thinking about. You mean like right-wing politics? Yes. Whatever. Wait, excuse me, but you mean left-wing politics too? Yeah. Whatever. Pardon me, but do you by any chance mean? I know it sounds, but politics, just all politics? Yeah. If you will not think, excuse me, well, does that go over into the area of like people who actually dislike politics, like the criticism of politics? Yeah, that too. If you'll not think, excuse me, do you follow? You got a lifetime hobby. Except if you understand what I'm talking about. It's also why I keep pointing out, and people even before me, but I've just put directly about criticism itself. If you've got any criticism of life, it doesn't mean that there are things in life that you might not want to fool with. But any criticism of life, like, well, we might be able as a people, as humans, we could definitely have more time to try and improve our spiritual life if we would only adopt more liberal, progressive, political actions. That is important, damn it. That would create a better atmosphere that we could all have more free time to try and pursue our own spiritual goals. Not you. Except for this, it is undeniable at any ordinary sane level. Nobody but a fool would stand and say, don't ever think about politics, it's a waste of time. If you got in public and said that, you'd be an idiot. You'd be a cow without a country. You understand that. But it is idiocy. No, it's worse than idiocy. It's a waste of time. If you're trying to understand something, so it doesn't matter. And of course, I shouldn't have said a waste of time, because that guy should have called my hand and go, wait a minute, that was thinking about it. I was talking about it. Making a point. Don't think about anything that other people think about. That's the kind of thing you can't ever come back to me and say, wait a minute, I got my stamp book full, and I'm still not fully conscious. No, you can't ever get it full. Because you ever get it full, then you'll understand. Your mind, your brain will be to the point that you see what everybody else thinks and you know what it amounts to. You are then truly Peter Pan. You can float in the air because you simply see what it all is. There's nobody to talk to. There's nobody to holler, God help me, I may fall. I can't stay up here forever. Yeah, you can. One thing will bring you down. The gravity of what everybody else thinks. As soon as you go, damn, there they go again. You understand? You're like a magnetic bomb yourself. Except no person you hurt, explode yourself. But there you are, almost floating back in that state again. I can almost bring it back sometimes to where I'm conscious non-verbally. I can almost do it. And then I'll be damned if the phone doesn't ring. Or the kid will cry. Or suddenly on the news, I can even hear the news playing in the background on the radio. And I can almost get back in that state to where I understand it all. And I hear what they're doing, and I can keep from doing it. And suddenly, I'll hear the voice of that goddamn right-wing would-be Prime Minister of England come on and go, well, what we should do. And it's just like this great magnetic bomb. It's like Peter Pan's no longer become this flying objective fairy. You're suddenly like this great shit bomb. But you're magnetically drawn to whatever it is you criticize, and you're done for. You go, zip! Except, sad to say, not to make a moral lesson of it, you don't hurt them. It's you that blows up. You hit the ground over and over, and it never hurts anybody but you. That's the name of the game. And when I say hurts you, at least it makes life happy, because it's one less person, at least for the time being, it has to worry about that might start floating away. All it's got to do is keep you, reasonably pissed. Well, I'm sorry, I take exception to that. I don't get pissed. I am an educated, sophisticated, thinking person. I do have certain objective, well-founded criticisms of the way life is run. You pissed. No, I'm not. He's worse than pissed. He's normal. Whatever he thinks about, don't think about it. Don't think about how they're wrong. Don't think anything about it. It's like forget that little bunny running around TV. You got a battery that'll never run out. You got a method that'll never run out. All you got to do is not think about anything anybody else thinks about. Just refuse. You don't think anything about it. Not yay or nay, not, well, wait a minute. Nuh-uh. If they're thinking about it, forget it. If it'd do any good, it would already done you some good. That's not the proof. The proof of it is I told you. But you don't know the truth. And it's true. But just look. It doesn't matter what they think about. It doesn't matter what they write about. If it meant anything, it had already meant something. They would have used it. The Pope would be awake. Rabbis would be floating in air like, angels. Politicians, those that say, well, elect me and I'll stop crime. All they're saying, it's not just crime. A priest, anybody, your mother, your mind says, hey, elect me. And I can change things. I can do something. No, you can't. But that's why people vote. That's why you have a hero. That's why you say, who do you like in this year's governor's race? I don't know, that Miss So-and-so or that Mr. So-and-so. Have you seen so-and-so's new movie? He kills everybody. It's all a matter of heroes. That they all say. They're doing it in movies, they're doing it in fiction, they're doing it in politics, and they just don't classify it as fiction. They're doing it in pulpits. Elect me, vote for me, come here, and I'll do so-and-so. They won't do shit. But an ordinary person's got to think that. They know that they can't. And if you're not that tied up anymore to be religious and actually go around talking to God, you need somebody. You need Clint Eastwood. You need Philip Roth. You need the Pope. You need your mind. You need what the rest of the world's thinking to where at least you can bounce off of it. And at least you say, well, at least I know not what not to do. And that's what these other people are doing. Close, but not close. Don't think about anything that anybody else thinks about. All of them. I don't mean just, don't pick out somebody. If anybody else is thinking about it, don't think about it. It'll save your knees. You don't have to sit. You don't have to go and live in a cave. You don't have to do much of anything but that. That and send me $1,000 a week